What's up, college football fans? Don't forget to check out and order your copy of Stiff Arming Football Myths, our latest football game plan book. So go on our website at footballgameplan.com/books and get your copy. We have these available in paperback as well as in PDF form.
The battle of I-75 as Bowling Green takes on Toledo, and the much-maligned Falcons defense has quietly gotten better as the season progressed. Linebacker Gabe Martin leads the team in tackles with 79, and he'll have his hands full going against a Toledo offense that punishes opponents at the line of scrimmage. Toledo's ground game is outstanding, whether it's running backs Kareem Hunt and Terry Swanson or quarterback Dwight Macon. The Rockets love to shrink the ball game and force you to maximize possessions. I worry about that Rockets secondary, and I think wide receivers Ryan Burbrink and Roger Lewis will be able to win those matchups on the outside. I like the Falcons. The Wildcats take on the Mountaineers, and Kansas State just ran into a buzzsaw last week versus TCU, but the biggest reason why was the fact that the Wildcats couldn't get anything going on the ground. They're still a very good football team, but they have to get back to doing what they do well, and that's being balanced offensively. West Virginia is coming off a bye and is trying to get back on the winning track after 2 consecutive losses. And what I like about the Mountaineers is that they get a lot of plays in. They're a high-volume offensive football team. Now, defensively, whether it's cornerback Darryl Worley or Terrell Chestnut, the goal is to limit the big plays coming from Tyler Lockett, the outstanding receiver for K-State. I like West Virginia in this ball game. Look for the quartet of backs behind guard Quentin Spain and Mark Lewinsky to have a big day versus K-State. Just like last year, the Tar Heels have turned it on late and now are 1 game away from bowl eligibility as they take on Duke. And the biggest concern for North Carolina is a run defense that's given up nearly 5 yards a carry on the ground. Now, that's not exactly what you want to hear when you're facing one of the best rushing teams in the conference in the Duke Blue Devils. Now, Duke, on the other hand, are a bend but don't break defense, and they clamp down inside the red zone, and they're able to get off the field on 3rd downs. Now, this game has a weird vibe to it, and I like North Carolina to win it. Look for the normally stout Blue Devils special team to have an off day, and a sensational Ryan Switzer to break away for his first punt return touchdown of the season. Big game in Conference USA between UTEP and Rice, and we know the Miners can run the heck out of the football with tailbacks Aaron Jones and Nathan Jeffrey, but they'll need quarterback Jamil Showers, who's played okay, to take some of the pressure off of that running game and loosen up the box. Now, Showers will have to hit some big passes in this one, and the Owls are coming off a very tough loss against Marshall, but I feel as though that was an anomaly. Rice's defense is still stout at every level. Defensive end Zach Patt does an excellent job on both ends of defense, and I think the Owls' passing game would be an issue for UTEP in this one. Look for Jordan Taylor to be the biggest X factor, and I like Rice to win this one. The Falcons travel to sunny San Diego to take on the Aztecs, and the Aztecs are 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and they must deal with the spread option attack of Air Force. The biggest X factor in this ball game for San Diego State will be their ability to make plays in space on both sides of the ball. It's tough to run against that Air Force defense led by linebacker Jordan Pierce, and I like Air Force in this ball game. Running back Jacoby Owens is a stud, and I think defensively the Falcons will make life tough for Aztec quarterback Quinn Kaler. Marshall battles UAB in a Conference USA tilt, and the Thundering Herd are still fighting for national respect. And while many are focusing on the schedule, they're missing the fact that the Herd are one of the most balanced teams in the nation. They can beat you with the run, the pass, or just with great defensive play. UAB is another team that's 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and the Blazers have the offense to give any team problems. They're able to beat you up front, and running backs Jordan Howard and DJ Vincent make an excellent 1-2 combo. The question lies on the defense side of the ball. The front end has to help out the back end, but can they do it consistently in the red zone? I don't think so. I like Marshall. Big chance for a statement game as South Alabama takes on South Carolina, and the Jags will more than likely be without quarterback Brandon Bridge this week, and Hunter Vaughn, who did okay last week versus Texas State, will get the nod. Offensively speaking, the Jags must be able to sustain drives versus the Gamecocks, who are uncharacteristically suspect on defense. South Carolina is struggling to stop the run and has to do a better job of eliminating the big play. Now, what they do have is one of the best offensive fronts in the SEC, and I think they'll rely on the legs of Mike Davis, and they'll run their way to bowl eligibility. I like the Gamecocks. Key battle in the MAC between Western Michigan and Central Michigan, and the Broncos are a young football team that's playing exceptionally well. This is a well-balanced, well-disciplined squad led by quarterback Zach Terrell, who spearheads an explosive offense that averages 460 yards a game. The Chippewas are led by head coach Dan Enos, and they're the most fundamentally sound bunch you'd see. They run a pro-style offense, and defensively, nose tackle Atarius Walton is one heck of a disruptive force up front. And the key matchup I'm excited to see is between Western Michigan's cornerback Donald Selskar and Central Michigan's wide receiver Titus Davis. That's a battle that both sides have to win. This is a pretty even matchup. Both teams actually mirror each other, so I'd go with the third aspect of the game, which is special teams, and I like what Western Michigan brings to the table in their return game. Look for wide receiver Darius Phillips to flip field position, giving the Broncos a short field to work with. I like Western Michigan. You'll get treated to two very good quarterbacks in this Louisiana Tech Old Dominion ball game. Bulldogs quarterback Cody Soko has led Louisiana Tech to 5 straight victories, while the well-accomplished Taylor Heineke has been able to get the Monarchs back on the winning track last week versus FIU. The biggest question in this ball game is the Old Dominion defense. Will they be able to slow down Tech's ground game led by Kenneth Dixon? I don't think so. I like Louisiana Tech to capture their 6th straight win and remain undefeated in Conference USA play. Pivotal game in the Pac-12 between Arizona and Utah, and the Wildcats' success will hinge on the defense's ability to play with great gap integrity versus Utah's running back Devontae Booker. And if this Wildcat defense can get off the field early, it'll put the ball back in the hands of the explosive Wildcat offense that can really force you to defend every blade of grass. The problem they'll face is up front versus Utah's Nate Archer, who's one of the top pass rushers in the country, and the front seven of the Utes has the size, the athleticism, the length to be effective versus this offense of Arizona. Quarterback Travis Wilson is able to play within himself, and he doesn't make mistakes with the ball. And I like Utah in a very close game. Arizona will push them to the limit, but the Utah defense is so active and underrated nationally, I think they'll be able to get key stops and come away victorious. Louisville and Notre Dame meet up this weekend. You can honestly make a case that the Cardinals could be undefeated right now, but it's all about being able to close out games versus ranked opponents. Now with Devontae Parker back into the fold, it'll make this Cards offense that much tougher to defend. Notre Dame's defense since the Stanford game has had problems in all facets, stopping the run, defending the pass, and giving up the big play. Offensively, quarterback Everett Golson, who was once very protective of the ball, has now started to make some very costly decisions with it. He'll have to match wits with free safety Gerard Holloman, who leads the nation with 13 interceptions. This should be a highly entertaining game, but I like Louisville to win this one. Keep an eye on running back Michael Dyer running behind that very good offensive line. He could be in store for a huge day versus the Irish. Down in the Sun Belt Conference, first-year FBS member Appalachian State tries to get their 6th win versus the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. This young football team of the Mountaineers has started to find their rhythm since the loss to Liberty. They've won 4 straight games, and it's due to a defense led by defensive end Ronald Blair that's starting to play on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. The Raging Cajuns have one of the most dynamic running backs in the country in Elijah McGuire, who's averaging a whopping 7.6 yards a carry, 11 rushing touchdowns, and also is the team's leading receiver. Obviously, quarterback Terrence Broadway has to get into a groove early and spread the wealth. I like the Cajuns in this ballgame. The biggest reason for their success this year is because they dominate both sides of the line of scrimmage. Defensive lineman Christian Ringo and Justin Hamilton will be a problem for App State up front. Missouri and Tennessee meet up in a big game in the SEC East, and the Tigers are still one of the toughest defensive football teams in the conference, led by defensive end Shane Ray in his 12.5 sacks. This is a smothering unit, only allowing 3.3 yards a carry. Now, the Volunteers come into this ballgame with some off-field issues regarding a couple of players, including all-conference linebacker A.J. Johnson. That's a big loss for these guys defensively. On the offensive side, I really like what I've seen from quarterback Joshua Dobbs. He's playing smart football and playing with a lot of confidence. Can they function if running back Jalen Hurd in that ground game isn't working? And I also think it'll be tough to get the ball to Marquez North with this Vols offensive line trying to pass protect. I like Missouri to pull away in this one late and knock off Tennessee. This should be another great game between USC and UCLA. Some excellent quarterback play in this one with USC's Cody Kessler and the Bruins' Brett Huntley. The two combined for 46 touchdown passes and only 7 interceptions on the season. The big matchup will be in the trenches. Can this Bruins' much maligned offensive line handle the Trojans' defensive front led by All-American Leonard Williams? On the back end for UCLA, you have a veteran group of defensive backs that will be more than ready to face a solid core of receivers for USC. This game, in my opinion, will be decided by the second-level defenders, and I think UCLA, with Miles Jack, Eric Kendricks, and Kenny Young, will be able to limit Buck Allen in that Trojans ground game. I don't think there'll be an in-between in this one. It'll either be a shootout or a low-scoring affair, and I lean toward the latter with the Bruins coming out on top. The Beavers have clawed their way back into the mix for bowl eligibility, sitting at 5-5, and they face the Washington Huskies this week. And what you will always notice about a Mike Riley team is how well coached they are, and he has done a great job in developing the talent consistently out there in Corvallis. Both running backs Teron Ward and Storm Woods are excellent runners that will have to be more involved in the passing game this week to help calm the pressure of that Huskies defense. And speaking of Washington, I love the athleticism that they possess defensively in the front seven. The Huskies could have an issue on the back end, in my opinion, in coverage, but I think they will be able to frustrate Beaver quarterback Sean Mannion enough, with outside linebacker Shaq Thompson being a big part of the reason why I like the Huskies to knock off Oregon State. Fresno State and Nevada kick off in a Mountain West Conference clash, and the Bulldogs still have a chance to win the Mountain West Division. Can they stop the run will be key. Right now, the Bulldogs are not winning at the point of attack, and offensively, they're not sustaining drives. The Wolfpack coming to this game off of a loss to Air Force, where they also had problems eliminating the big play. Now, their zone defense will be put to the test by a Bulldogs passing game that loves 4 wide receiver sets. Now, I like the Wolfpack in this one. Fresno State struggles with teams like Nevada and has struggled with teams like Nevada all season long. Look for quarterback Cody Fajardo to have a big day on the ground. This game in the SEC is an underrated one between Ole Miss and Arkansas. The Rebels got back on the winning track with a 48-0 drubbing of Presbyterian, and this game will be a classic strength versus strength game, as the Rebels are sensational versus the run, and the Razorbacks come into this game as one of the best rushing teams in the country. This game will ultimately come down to whether or not the Razorbacks receivers Keon Hatcher and Hunter Henry can win on the outside. They're facing one of the toughest secondaries in the SEC, led by cornerback Senquez Golson. Now, I like the Rebels in this ball game to do a great job of playing on your side of the line of scrimmage. Arkansas will be very tough to move off the spot, and it wouldn't surprise me to see this one go into overtime, but I do like Ole Miss to come out on top. And finally, the next chapter in the 2014 season for the Florida State Seminoles as they take on Boston College. The Eagles pose a huge threat to Florida State because they do two things very well. They can run the football and they play very good defense. Boston College's offensive line, led by center Andy Galick, really does a great job up front. Now, Florida State has to, as always, play a clean game. Early on, the Seminoles play very sloppy football, and a team like Boston College can really own a TOP if you're not careful. Now, for the Noles to have success, I think it's imperative to feed the freshman running back Delvin Cook early and often, which would allow Jameis Winston the luxury of operating off play action and would also minimize the risk versus a defense that'll be more than likely gambling early on to make a big play. I like Florida State in this ball game. It will be another entertaining matchup versus the Eagles, but at the end of the day, the Noles defense will be able to rise to the occasion and slow down Boston College's offense.